In this video, we will continue where we left off, and we will start building the financial statements, which is step 7. So we're going to skip from step 4 to step 7. Next chapter, we're going to do this, the adjusting entries and adjusted trial balance. So we analyzed transactions, we recorded transactions to the general journal, we posted to the general ledger, we created the unadjusted trial balance, and then later on, and then after that, we're going to jump to the financial statements. Okay, so in the financials, remember we had the general ledger and the general journal. So here's the general journal, and then you have the general ledger. We had all of those things here, right? General journal, general ledger. And then we created the trial balance, which is just the balances of the general ledger. So I take the balances in my T accounts and I bring them over. This is exactly what you had last chapter, except everything was in one column. Now you have a debit column and a credit column, but the process is the same. So we're going to create the income statement, statement of retained earnings, balance sheet, and cash flow statement using this trial balance. Right, so it's very simple. So here's the setup. You're still going to have these items on the left hand side. So I'm going to bring in sales revenue, which is 0, right, and service revenue, which is 80,000. So I go to my trial balance, I look for sales revenue and service revenue. You'll see 0 and 80,000. So I bring that over, right? So remember, sales revenue and service revenue, we add those together and we subtract sales discounts and sales returns and allowances. If I look at the trial balance, sales discounts and sales returns and allowances are 0, so I keep it at 0 and I get net sales revenue. Service revenue minus the sales discounts minus the sales returns and allowances gives me net sales revenue. Then I go to cost of goods sold. This is a service company, so we don't have any cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is 0, so I can leave it blank or just put a 0 there. So 80,000 minus 0 is 80,000. Then I look for operating expenses, which is selling expenses and administrative expenses. So any expense that's selling, I include. So if I look, I see cleaning expense is 1,000. I see another selling expense, salary expense is 10,000. Supplies expense is 0. So I bring those three over. So I've got 10,000 in salaries and 1,000 in cleaning. That's 11,000 in selling expenses. I do the same thing for administrative expenses. So I go and I look for what my admin expenses are. Depreciation expense of 3,100, insurance expense is 0, and then we have rent expense of 0, and then salary expense of $8,000. So I go through, I put in the depreciation expense, I put in the salaries expense. 3,100 plus 8,000 is 11,100. So I've got total selling expenses of 11,000, total administrative expenses of 11,100. I add these two together to get total operating expenses of 22,100. So now how do I get operating income? Operating income is gross profit minus my total my total operating expenses. So 80,000 minus 22,100 gives me 57,900. I look in the other revenues and expenses section. There's no interest revenue, there's no interest expense, there's no gains, there's no losses. That's all 0. And if you look at the trial balance, you'll see that, right? So gains 0, losses 0, interest expense 0, interest revenue 0. So everything is 0. So my 57,900 for operating income is the same for income before income tax expense. And then I go to income tax expense on the trial balance is 2,500. I bring over the 2,500, and then 57,900 minus 2,500 is 55,400, and that is my net income. All right. So that's how we complete the income statement on using the information from the trial balance.